Medics.
Welcome to the Under the Hood Show from the Autotempest.com studios. All the cars, one search. This is the Under the Hood Show, 866-594-4150. Russ Evans is here to answer your automotive questions.
Thanks for joining us under the hood.
Shannon Nordstrom is here to do the same.
Welcome, hoodies. Thanks for tuning in so we can help you tune up.
I'm Chris Carter here to answer your calls at 866-594-4150.
She's only going to be in the States for a few more months before she goes off to Europe for college, and her car got wrecked through no fault of hers. Well, this little girl came home in one of my Cadillacs 18, 19 years ago, and he said, "Hey, can I borrow a car for a little bit?" I said, "Sure." So we borrowed the LS400, and long story short, she drove into the back of somebody, set off my airbags, blew out my windshield, bent up my dash, and I still want to fix the car. So I've been going through all the fun of changing out the entire dash, having a new windshield put in, fixing the bumper and all that. The problem I have now is I don't know where I stand on the airbags. Can I just replace that central module, or do I have to replace sensors? I don't know where I am, and the last thing I want to do is have it all put back together, powered up, and blow everything up again.
Well, great question. Great question. And, you know, those cars are just the flagship of Toyota. I mean, I probably said the same thing back a year ago, but Russ got really, really deep into one that got a little bit deep into water back in the flooded one. 93, 94. I think it was the car was a 92, I think, and the flood was 93. I think is what it was. And we learned a lot about those cars, but what we learned is that at the end of the day, fancy Lexus, same as probably working on a Toyota Avalon. You just got to figure out the systems, and the parts are a little different price in certain areas. As far as replacing airbags in that car, if you go to a factory recommendation that was done 20 years ago, it looks it looks similar, but yet different to one that is today. When the airbag systems first came out, they said, replace every sensor, replace every... You know, they had you taking the dash out and replacing pieces of harness. It was very, very over the top safety to the point where it was almost a little bit crazy. As time has went on and more technicians have gotten educated about how the systems work, they've changed the stances not on to let down on safety concerns, but to say, you know what, a sensor, not the main brain, but the actual sensors that have not been physically impacted by the accident, where they're not scratched, cracked, stressed, they most likely can be reused again. The sensors themselves. So you got to find out.
So they're non-latching.
No, they're not latching. There's just inside of those sensors. Most of them are either like a window shade that rolls out and makes contact, or like a ball that moves back and forth.
And the ball's held onto a magnet, and then there's two contacts on the far side. And when you have a strong enough impact, the ball falls off the magnet and rolls forward and touches the two contacts, and then immediately clicks back to the magnet.
Yeah. So in that model, you're going to have multiple safeguards in the system to avoid an accidental deployment of the system during reassembly. But you're going to have to...
like two things have to click, in other words.
Exactly. So you need to replace the physical airbags that are deployed and replace those with the same units. And then that diagnostic control unit that's in there, in that car, I don't remember, Russ, do you happen to know, is that one that can be reprogrammed, or is that one that's going to have to be replaced?
When we were doing those, we replaced them all. I don't think there was any that we found that were reprogrammable.
Yeah, well, there was some of them back in the day that you could clear the events out of and get a second use out of them. But I just can't remember on that car.
That's the problem.
If there was or not.
I'm running into is it's an early. I mean, airbags were kind of a new thing in '96, and it really wasn't all fleshed out how it was what the state of the art would be. I mean, for example, I doubt these are variable rate units. And 96, some people tell me
96. I'm just thinking about this for a second. In the Chevrolet pickups that we worked so much with, they were dual stage in 96 or 97.
I don't think it's dual stage in the Lexus, though. It's still running the same basic system that they ran in the 93 when they first came out with that model car.
But even if it is dual stage, the operation
Won't
is
affect a
the
thing.
same.
Yeah.
We have a number of people that would call us in our recycling side of the business, and they would buy the diagnostic unit out of a vehicle that had not had an airbag deployment, and then they would reuse that module in another car. That was very common. Now that's gotten to be not as common with some of the VIN lockdowns that are in there. You have to make sure you can reprogram the VIN into it to make sure it knows which car it's in. That's what a person has to pay attention. But there's also a number of companies that have sprung up on the internet, some better than others, that specialize in helping people rebuild airbag systems. And they are very good. They're another resource that's not factory that you can talk to, and they'll tell you, "Oh, you got that car? Here's what you need to do."
Look up airbag module rebuilding, and it'll take you to a lot of those sources.
Of them out there. Yep.
Al, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you. 866-594-4150. You're listening to the Under the Hood Show.
Right now, and schedule your next radio appointment with the Motor Medics.
866-594-4150 from the Autotempest.com studios. All the cars, one search. This is the Under the Hood Show. Again, 866-594-4150. Let's go to Oregon and talk to Steven. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Steven, what can we do for you?
Hey, guys. Hey, I've got a 2011 Ford Flex that my wife and I both drive and camp in, actually. And we have an issue where I was on a trip and air conditioning started blowing warm and gurgling behind my dash. And so I bought a can of the over-the-counter type stuff and put it in there, and it seemed to fix it for a while. But then I started noticing that when I was at idle, or when I start the car at idle, it would blow warm air. And it seems to be connected to whether or not the fans under the hood are on or not. And it's pretty intermittent on when it's idling and it's doing that.
Can I clarify before
when I'm driving, I get cold. Sure.
Can I clarify that what you put in was a can of an over-the-counter refrigerant type additive?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
I thought that's what you meant. I just wanted to make sure. Keep rolling with your story.
Okay. So when I'm driving, blowing cold air, everything's great. When I'm idling, most of the time it's blowing cold air, but not always. And it seems like, I can go a full day where it's blowing cold air at idle or driving, and I can go a day when I start the car and it's blowing warm air, and before I get down the block driving, it's cold and it stays like that. And I can do days where it's idle and it's just on and off, sometimes blowing cold, sometimes not at idle. And it seems to be, like I said, it seems like it's related to when that fan's on or not, whether it's blowing the hot or cold air under the hood. And when I plugged in the pressure gauge, those little cheesy pressure gauges that come with those cans, it shows that it's up in the high when the fan is not on. But when the fan's blowing and it's blowing cold air again, it shows it back in the normal green okay range. And I know I'm trying to figure out where to go next.
If the fan is not on, it's not going to work properly, and it will get hot. Your pressures get high, and then therefore no cold air. So the fan's got to be working correctly. It could be the problem with the actual fan itself, with the fan relay, with the sensor circuit, which is sensing the pressure in the AC system, telling it to turn on. Looks like we need to diagnose the fan circuit, because we've already verified we have pressure, and we have too much pressure when the fan's off, and the pressure's normal when the fan's on, and everything's working good and it's cold. That's telling us that we've got something going on with the fan circuit. And our first start on that would be plug in a scan tool, watch the scan tool, look at the pressures, and see if it's telling us fan requested yes or no. And if we see that our pressure is high and there's no fan request, we know that either we have a sensor issue and it's not sensing what's going on, which is very common on those for that pressure switch to go bad, or the computer's got an issue with it. If it says, if we go to the sensor and measured it and it shows that it's correct there electrically, but the computer says no fan request, we know that the computer's not doing its job. but more than likely it's going to be the sensor. It's not very often we see a computer fail on one of those. We may see a driver fail, so it's not engaging the compressor clutch, but for it to not sense pressure and turn on the cooling fan relay, and then other times work. When computers fail, it's typically off forever, unless it's a thing where you can tap on it or temperature related. But if it just comes and goes like that,
Okay.
I'm thinking more along the lines of a possible pressure sensor on that system that's on the high side. That what it does is it senses when the high pressure gets up to a certain point, it kicks on, runs the fan. When it drops down below that point, it shuts the fans off.
Does that make sense a
Now,
little bit?
going down the road, if you're at the
I think
highway,
so.
60 miles an hour, does it always work good?
Yep.
Because the fans have no control over that. The fans are going to shut off at about 35, 40 miles an hour automatically to save electricity and fuel and, load on the engine. So if it's good down the road, it's an airflow's doing it, which again leads us straight to the fans and not to compressor, which is good for you.
Stephen, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. Let us know. 866-594-4150. Let's go to Pennsylvania and talk to Milt. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Milt, what can we do for you?
Well, I have a 2011 Chevy Impala, and my blend door was banging or flapping, and I got inside the glove compartment. There's one on the left. It wasn't that one. It was the one on the right, and I took it out and, of course, took it apart, and I saw that the one tooth was off one of the gears, and I was wondering, I talked to a guy at the auto parts. He says I should buy a GM one because sometimes they need programmed. You can't buy one of these cheap over-the-counter ones or one on the internet. Is that true?
Not in your case. Not at all. In your case, you're probably talking about the recirculation motor, which is on the far passenger side behind that glove box, up kind of high there, up mid glove box. That recirculation motor does not need to be programmed. You can buy one from DormanProducts.com, which is also available. They're a partner of ours, Dorman, and it's available at pretty much any auto parts store you go to. It's a bolt-in. You're right. It's in the lower price range. You should be able to just bolt it in and have it work. In fact, I installed one in a 2010 Impala, which is exactly the same thing, about a week ago, and it was about an hour project. Unbolted it, bolted the new one in, turned it on, and that was it.
Do you have to stage?
Seamless.
Do you have to stage it or anything?
Nothing. I just put it in. It only goes in one way. It's splined basically with one big keyway. Turn the motor a little bit.
So you can't get it 90 degrees off or anything like that?
Not that one. You just put it right in and it goes. Now, other vehicles, Caravans, some of the new trucks, Trailblazers and things, they do have to be relearned with a scan tool. But again, you can use any blend door motor in it and run them. And works just fine.
What controls it? What stops it when it flips the damper one way and then back the other way to close?
They have, on the ones like that with multiple wires, it has a control to run the motor, and then it has a sensor circuit built in. And what happens is the sensor circuit built in, it has a wiper in there that's running back and forth on a rheostat. And as that thing's running back and forth, it's reporting position back. And if it gets any dirt buildup in there, it's like an old slot car controller where you would speed up from fast to slow. I mean, you're probably at least our age, so maybe a little younger. But, they would stop. If you went around the track and you had it like halfway and all of a sudden you go, oh, the car stopped. And you move a little further and it would go, or a little less and it would go. Same thing happens in that motor. So when it goes to the end and it says, oh, we're getting real close, get ready to stop, and then it doesn't sense the end, it keeps traveling and goes click, 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 and that little plastic gear starts stripping in there because you've got a strong electric motor trying to turn a cheap plastic gear, and once it gets to the end, if it doesn't sense that it needs to stop, it doesn't stop. The other design that's used in a lot of manufacturers is voltage. It's a current sensing thing, and it watches the voltage that it needs to run that motor, and then all of a sudden when it sees that drop dramatically, it knows it's reached the end of its travel, and it stops. And then the only other place it can go is the other direction when it senses it. But yours, when you've got multiple wires and there are more than two wires to run it back and forth, then you're getting a sensing of the actual position.
Well, now this one only has two wires.
If it's a two wire, it's a current sensing unit. If it's a 3 or 4 or more, or some of them are 5 or 6 wire, then that's sensing position.
And the good thing for that model is it typically breaks the little motor and not the shaft or the splines going into the HVAC system.
When you get your old one out, take it apart, either with a hammer or a screwdriver, and look inside, and you'll see how that functions. But there'll be if it's a 2-wire, it's going to be a current sensing type unit. And what it does is when you turn your AC, and it depends if it's automatic or manual. That's different in how those systems work in that year. But as you move it one direction, let's say down for decrease in temperature, it starts moving the motor one way. It knows which way to move it, and it looks for that current sensing. And when you move it the other way, it looks for the current sensing. And when you start the car, it's going to go through a full travel, one way to the other, so it can determine how much time it takes for to sense it each way for the voltage that's going into it. And then it knows, okay, we want to put it halfway. It needs to run this many seconds at this many voltage. And if the voltage is down a little bit, let's say you got all your lights on or something and the regulator's not it's going to move it quicker or slower depending. It's a smart system, but not super smart.
Does that help you out there, Milt?
Yes, it does. Thank you. But it always goes to the open position. If I have it on the closed, it's like open inside or outside air. Wherever it goes, it always goes back to the open to let outside air in.
If you put it on max AC, that's going to be the only position that you can run that recirculate. But if your button on the dash, when you push it, if that's shutting off when it's moving and it's going back to outside air all the time, that's probably a controller issue. It runs from the controller directly to those motors. It wouldn't be just a motor. The clicking would be a motor issue, but if it switches back all the time, that's usually the control in the dash. We have to put a lot of those in those cars. They fail a lot.
Milt, thanks very much for the call. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you. 866-594-4150. You're listening to the Under the Hood Show.
Prepare to learn something. You're going under the hood.
866-594-4150 from the Autotempest.com studios. All the cars, one search. This is the Under the Hood Show. If you like our Facebook page, you subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you join the Hoodie Fan Club at underthehoodshow.com, you could win a hoodie.
Like Craig Miller, who listens to us in Yuma, Arizona. Congratulations from all of us here under the hood and our friends over at Universal Technical Institute. They will get you trained. They will get you ready for a career in automotive. From any aspect of automotive, collision, welding, any kind of repair, they work right with the manufacturers to get you ready for that job. And there's so much open right now in the automotive field that if you're trained, you can pretty much pick your place.
Mm-hmm.
Pick who you want to work for, what you want to do, make good money. That's the way to go. But if you're not trained, well, I don't know. As jobs change around, which they always do over the decades, they've gone up, they've gone down. There's been jobs open, there's been no jobs open. I can remember when people used to knock down our door a couple times a week. Hey, got anything open? Nope. Well, when you do have one spot open, you're going to hire the person who's most qualified. And if I've got a UTI graduate come to me and I'm looking to hire, they're going to get hired. Guy just says, well, I kind of know a little bit about cars. I changed oil for my brother-in-law a couple times. I'm like, no, go back to school. Well, I didn't think I needed school because there were so many jobs open. Well, that was 3 years ago. This is today. Things change. So get yourself trained, then be confident in what you do. And right now, our friends over at CarMax are hiring experienced auto technicians for many of their 200-plus stores nationwide. And if you're looking for a job where you can make a great living while working on the cars you love, CarMax is the place for you. Join CarMax and grow your technical expertise and work with state-of-the-art tools and technology. Work on the cars you love. Join CarMax. Apply today at CarMaxAutotech.com.
866-594-4150. Let's talk to Todd. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Todd, what can we do for you?
Got a 13 F-250 Power Stroke that I put a motor in it, but now I've got it has no vacuum boost for the brakes, and it's got vacuum. I've changed the booster. I've got vacuum at the booster, And I put my scanner on it, and it doesn't find the ABS. Not sure what's going on there.
Boy, you got all sorts of stuff going on. Well, the first thing we need to find out is why we don't have any boost. Find out why we don't have any pressure. Have you put a vacuum gauge on that? Or you've got?
Yeah, I've got 20 pounds of vacuum.
Well, you've got a Hydro Boost system on that, don't you?
Right.
Power steering.
No, it's not. It's not hydro. It's vacuum.
Only vacuum on that one?
6.7s have vacuum.
Okay, yeah, but that's all you've.
the
Okay, so you've
6.7s
just got vacuum only. All right.
Yep.
And you said you've got 20 inches of vacuum there at the booster then?
Yep.
If you've got that much boost, you should have assist. So if you step on the pedal, does it do the same whether the key is on or off? Feels the same?
It's not either way. Yep.
Okay. Well, the way the vacuum boosters work on vehicles is there's a little vacuum switch inside of that can, and when you step on the pedal a little bit, it opens up the vacuum switch just slightly and allows that vacuum that's coming in to pull on the booster and assist in you pulling the pedal to the floor. And then when you let off of the pedal, it closes the switch and vents to let the air out, and the pedal moves back up. So if you've got no assist at all when you step on that, you've got to have something going on inside the booster if you've got 20 inches of vacuum. You should have operation with 13.
I just replaced the vacuum booster with a new one yesterday and didn't change anything.
Where are you measuring your 20 inches at?
Where the hose going into the vacuum booster.
Okay. I wonder if you've got something sticking in the brakes. You don't have any communication with the ABS system.
Nope. They put a snap-on Solus Edge on it. It keeps telling me to retry to connect and turn key, make sure key is on, but it doesn't find it. It finds everything else.
It finds every other module in the vehicle?
What's that?
It finds every module. You're certain of that in the vehicle that it's equipped with?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it finds the engine stuff anyway. I can pull codes and stuff like that.
Okay.
Clear codes.
Well, we've got one in the shop we're working on right now that's very similar, same engine, and we had no communication with several modules in there that we were addressing. And
ours may or may not have been struck by lightning.
Yeah, right. But when it came down to it, our ABS, we had two things that kept us from communicating with the ABS, and one was a glow plug control module, and the other one was a transmission control module. Although we could read codes in the engine, we could read body codes and all sorts of stuff. And then we had other modules that did the same thing. We couldn't communicate with the body control module because we had a seat module that was malfunctioning, and it was causing the system to shut down. Getting communication with that hydraulic control unit and its module is going to be key, because you want to see what's going on in there, because if that thing has got some valves shut, it may not be allowing fluid pressure to go to the wheels.
Well, it's not hydraulic though; it's vacuum.
No. The hydraulic control unit itself, where your brake fluid's running through in the ABS.
Oh.
So
yeah,
if you're,
okay.
Let's say those are shut off, which is basically the equivalent of taking the two lines off your master cylinder and putting two caps in there, your pedal's not going to go down. It's going to be solid as a rock. So does the vehicle, have you tried to drive it this way?
Well, yeah, I have driven it, but I mean, it doesn't. I mean, you have no boost. I mean, it's got brakes,
but
you
it
can
stops.
push on the brakes hard enough and it stops.
That's what I was curious about, was whether it stops
hard.
or not. Because if it didn't stop well, then it could be in the it could still be in that ABS system that's causing that to just give too much resistance in there, and it's not allowing it to go.
And just to replay what you said, this vehicle was operating fine, and then the engine went bad. Did it score a cylinder or something like that, and you had to replace the engine?
Well, I just got the motor, and I mean, it never ran before. We bought it. He bought it without a motor, or the motor fuel system bad, and then they they broke off an injector bolt where he had it, so we replaced the engine, just put a different engine in it.
So you've never driven this vehicle
Nope.
as a good operating vehicle before because you don't know the history since you just bought it. Okay.
Right.
That always makes a mess.
It makes it more interesting there. That's for sure. Because I mean, there's times where we've had projects we'd end up with, and Russ and Jake and the guys get them at the shop, and that definitely adds to the level of intrigue when you don't know what's been done or anything like that. So I know a lot of times I'll catch those guys and they're looking into it, and so many times it's when they go back and start retracing wires that were moved, harnesses that were near areas where you start setting things in place, bulkhead connectors, just things that didn't set in right. That's where you start finding those hard to find communication errors, because it doesn't often ruin a module. It can, but it doesn't often, Russ, correct? It's
right.
It's typically something that either needs to be reprogrammed or it's been a communication error because there's something severed or not connected correctly, something that was left undone, because there is a lot of stuff underneath that hood.
Oh,
and It's
yeah.
in a very packed engine compartment. Did you guys lift the body off to do the replacement, or did
Yep.
you?
Yep.
So you had it.
Took the body off.
So you had the body unmarried from the chassis. So, I think I would go back and double check all those connections so you can get that communication back. It doesn't still explain the basic principles of the vacuum brake booster not working.
Right. Well, unless it has a fluid issue with the actual brake fluid itself, and it's just not allowing it to move through easily because something is keeping it that way in that pump. I've got to get that pump going so I can see what's going on before I do anything.
Your
else.
manual braking that you have, is it pretty good range to it, or is it super touchy?
No, I mean it's like it should be. I mean, from my other ones I have, I mean it brakes about the same. It's just that it has no boost. The pedal moves about the exactly same as my other ones do, but it has no boost. It's just hard as a rock.
There's always a slight chance that there's a problem with the booster you got, but the replacement, but very rare.
Occasionally you see a diaphragm pushed out of one or
Usually
something.
the first one doesn't fail, but the second one would be even crazier.
We hate to leave you with good luck, but
Right.
Good luck.
If you could see the looks on their faces, this one's got you a little bit.
well, he's done a lot of the work that needs to be
Mhm.
done already. But I think Russ is saying we've got to get. It's hard to say beyond a shadow of a doubt that you've got everything working if you know everything's not working.
Right. Yeah.
Especially when it's part of the system that's not operating to what he feels normal on another vehicle, and how this vehicle feels. That's his judge.
You know what happened to us two or three times to us on some of the Chevys with vacuum boosters. They have codes on them for different style boosters. And we had a guy come in, this is more than once, where they had done some work themselves or bought it from somebody else not running or working, and it had the wrong part on it. So they replaced it. They said, well, make sure you get a YT booster because that's what's in it. So we bought another one, put it on there. He goes, well, I already tried that and it didn't work. And then we find out it's got the wrong one on it. And that wasn't what it was equipped with from the factory. So we said, well, what did you do to fix it? Well, we replaced the booster. Well, I've done that twice. I said, yeah, but we put the wrong one on it. So now we've got the correct one
we
for
put
the
one
vehicle.
on that the VIN number says is
And
called.
then it worked. So there is always that. When you're working with somebody else's previous repair,
Oh, sure.
it can make things really tough. There's a lot of stuff we just won't even work on anymore because of that. If they've brought it in and said, well, I've taken it to 3 shops and they threw a whole bunch of stuff on from cars, they don't know what fits it, so they tried. And we're like, nope.
Todd, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. Let's go to Montana and talk to Randall. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Randall, what can we do for you?
Good morning. I've got an '09 Mustang that I bought new with 140,000 miles on it. And I do all the scheduled maintenance that's required that Ford gave me. And I'm due for a flush radiator. And should them hoses be replaced? It don't say, all it does say is check the hoses when you have oil changes. The hoses is 12 years old. What do you recommend?
As hoses age, they can fail at any time. And for us to check them, what we usually do, if they're getting that old and we're not changing them, if the hose is clean, meaning it's not covered with engine oil. Engine oil will destroy them. You don't want any leaks on them at all. That's another good reason to check and repair oil leaks and stuff, or coolant. But if the hose is just got a little dust on it, if you rub your thumb on it pretty solidly for a couple inches on it, if pieces of the hose come off, like dirt, if it's soft and comes apart, or if the hose is swollen up at all, or shows any signs of corrosion where it's starting to seep at the end, just replace it. It's not worth a failure like that, and it's super easy. If you're flushing the radiator anyways, super easy to replace that upper and lower radiator hose. Sometimes the heater hoses can be a little more difficult, but those two main hoses, they're probably going to cost you $30
You don't
for a
think
pair.
replace all of them? Well, if I replaced them all, it's about $300.
That's
But
for somebody
you say
else to
just
do it?
replace the upper. Yeah.
Well, I think what we're saying
saying
though is just make sure and inspect them closely.
Yeah. If you're not going to replace them, inspect them. Replacing them would not hurt anything and would not be a bad idea because they're 13 years old, and they say about 5 years on average. We don't see a lot of hoses fail on cars from 2005 on up, but we do see some. But the hoses are getting better. They do last a long time, depending on your climate. But
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, so basically it will be great to switch them. You might not need to inspect them. So, and I'm not being facetious here. You and I would inspect them and leave them if they looked good.
I have got a number of vehicles that are older than 15 years old that I've had, and I've inspected the hoses. And you just kind of learn over the years, like Russ said, if you touch them and you're getting rubbery stuff coming off on your hands,
or if they're soft,
you replace them because it's just a catastrophe waiting to happen.
Randall, thanks very much for the call. 866-594-4150. We're going to take a break, and we come back. We want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show.
Something. You're going under the hood.
866-594-4150. From the Autotempest.com studios, all the cars, one search. This is the Under the Hood Show. Let's talk to Austin. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Austin, what can we do for you?
Hey, thanks, guys. Great to be on. You know, I purchased for the first time in my life a diesel truck, and I have just a couple of questions. You know that diesel exhaust fluid, if I don't put that in, is it some kind of a violation? I never asked anybody this question. And also, is that just something that has to be in there? And then secondly, it has an Allison transmission, and I've heard all the hype about, one guy told me, I've never had one come in, and I've been working on diesels for 4 years. Is the Allison transmission, what would be the main thing I need to do to extend the life of that transmission? Like, give me 3 things that are just solid to make sure I can get $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 per miles out of that transmission.
Wow, you are looking for all of it.
Yeah.
I was expecting you to say a couple 100,000, but 3, 4, 5. You're putting the pressure on us, man.
For sure.
Let's take the diesel exhaust fluid question first. In that vehicle, it is so tuned in electronically. That emission system is so important. For them to be able to produce that truck, they have to be able to meet emissions requirements. And in order for them to get the performance they wanted and the fuel economy they wanted, they made the choice to start adding diesel exhaust fluid to those vehicles in like 2011 or 2012 or whatever it was. The diesel exhaust fluid has to be in there, or else the sensors will say, I don't have what I need to produce my clean air, and I'm shutting you down.
If they made the truck so that it could operate without it, people wouldn't fill it up.
They would not put it in.
They'd be like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, but you have to put it in, or else it'll eventually derate you to say, all right, we're powering you down to this speed. Now we're taking you to this speed. Now you're in limp mode. Good luck. It's not what it says, but that's basically what they do. They take you down to a crawl if you don't put that fluid in there.
So that's necessary just for it to run.
100% necessary. Okay. You have to do it. Is that? I mean, I can't be any clearer on that one. Does that answer that question?
Yeah, I got it. I thought maybe it was some kind of a California law or something.
No, it is. No, it's nationwide. And
operation.
No, my sister's had these trucks in the GMC form for a number of years, and some of the first ones that came out, they had probably a little more problematic of a system where sensors would go bad in the DEF tank. They'd get false signals that they were low on DEF fluid or there was moisture.
Me, just peripherally from doing this show, we used to have a lot of problems with that. That has not been an issue for a while.
They've gotten a lot of that ironed out.
Yeah.
People put a lot of it was user induced. They'd put anti-gel in the DEF tank. They would put diesel in the DEF tank, and they would mix and match, and they would screw the systems up. But now people know how to use it, and they're good at it.
Which some people would also say is a design flaw. I mean, if it's easy to make that mistake, then they didn't do enough to make it work.
Well, the people that have successfully gotten diesel into the DEF tank, they have done some pretty amazing filling. When you look, because
especially on the old ones where you had to open the hood to fill it.
Yeah, I'm like, how did you do that? Because it doesn't fit. Okay, so let's take on your transmission. That Allison transmission is a workhorse. It has overall been proven to be. I'm saying overall because you can kill anything. It is proven to be a transmission that will, with proper maintenance, following the factory recommendations, it should last you 200, 300, 400,000 miles very, very easily. If you are pulling the vehicle heavily and you do a lot of work with it, then make sure you're in the heavy service interval or even drop below that when you do your fluid flushes and things like that on that transmission. Russ, do you have it? He said 3 or 4 things. I don't know that we have that many to offer on an Allison transmission.
They just go. They're pretty good. If you're changing the fluid at the intervals you should, they just last. They're good.
What do you know what those intervals are?
Depends on how much towing you're doing. A lot of it has to do with monitoring the fluid condition yourself.
I'm pulling a fifth wheel this year. First time I've ever hauled it. It weighs about 8,500 pounds. I had the Silverado is a 3/4 ton, and they told me, Austin, no problem. I'm only going to pull it a few times. I really got it to pull that. I didn't get it for recreation. So if it'll just pull it down there and then pull it back when we need it back, that's about all I'm using it for.
It's hardly going to know that 8,500 pound camper is behind it.
Yeah, it's that. Okay.
There's enough brawn there to pull that camper easily. There's people that are using that towing rating to haul larger fifth wheel campers that are much heavier than that. I mean, your 8,500 pound unit, you probably got 2 slides on it?
Yes. What shocks me is the RPMs. Like I was going down the road. Now this is without that camper, but this thing's somewhere around 1,600 RPMs. Never seen that on a vehicle before, and I'm going 75 miles an hour, 70. So that's kind of nice. And my mileage is about 21.
Yeah, they're a workhorse. People love those trucks, and if you found one used recently, you must have paid plenty for it, because the used late model diesels that are in good condition and somewhat low mileage even are bringing close to the price of new in our market right now.
Austin, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. That's a nice thing to hear, that it's not going to be an issue. He just has to keep up on regular maintenance.
Hey, just to throw this in quick, his name was Austin. In Austin is where they're doing this test. I mentioned earlier about do you tip a self-driving pizza delivery?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a company that is working with a local pizza joint down there, and they're doing this test with a unit that they call the 3-wheel self-driving Rev 1. And it's a 15-mile-an-hour unit that can drive around a town and carry groceries, pizzas, this different thing. So it is, they're testing this in Austin, Texas, a company out of Michigan.
I say no, by the way, on the
You don't tip them?
No. Let's go to Nebraska and talk to Jim. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Jim, what can we do for you?
Well, yeah, I got a 2014 Dodge Grand Caravan, and I don't know, I've owned it about 10 months. It has 102 or 3,000 miles. And, probably 500 miles ago, I had the spark plugs replaced, because I thought, well, I guess I was told that's something you should do maybe every 100,000 miles. The truck or the van seems to run really good. The only question I have, and it's maybe normal, I don't know, it's just, I don't know if it's a transmission issue or any issue, but when you accelerate, it seems to kind of bog down. It doesn't smoothly go, like if you're pulling off on an interstate or something and you want to get up to 75 miles an hour and you start from, say, 10. All right, well, it seems to kind of hesitate at a certain point at a low range, and then it'll shift down, and then away you go. And once you get up to speed, it's fine. It's just that it seems to have the hesitation upon acceleration. And I know it's got a lot of gears in this transmission, but it just doesn't seem to go through them smoothly. That's just my guess, but maybe that's normal. I don't know.
Yeah, they do have a lot of speeds in them, and they do feel quite different. So before I got too drastic with diagnosing, as long as your check engine light's not on and it seems to feel like it's pretty safe, I would try to drive another one if you have the chance. If somebody, they're hard to find them right now on lots, but if you could drive another one and see what it does. Because Shannon actually had one of these, and I drove it, and I said, this doesn't feel right. But it went. If I stepped on it, it would go. It's just they try to keep it in a lower RPM range for fuel mileage and economy, and they shift up higher, so it just feels like it's bogging down. So I would drive another one first just to see how it feels, or ask your shop.
Jim, thanks very much for the call. That'll do it for this hour of the Under the Hood Show. Hour 2 is coming up. Thanks for listening to the Under the Hood Show, brought to you by Sturdivants.
Medics.
Welcome to the Under the Hood Show from the Autotempest.com studios. All the cars, one search. This is the Under the Hood Show, 866-594-4150. Russ Evans is here to answer your automotive questions.
Thanks for joining us under the hood.
Shannon Nordstrom is here to do the same.
Welcome, hoodies. Thanks for tuning in so we can help you tune up.
I'm Chris Carter here to answer your calls at 866-594-4150. What's caught your attention in the automotive world?
You know, I hate to have to keep bringing it up, but, well, we don't have to. We just do.
Yeah.
But this chip shortage thing is still just a mess. Nissan had to shut down their assembly plant in Tennessee for, looks like about 2 weeks now because of chip shortages. And to me, I find it interesting, is the word I use way too many times. Puzzling might be a better word.
Okay.
That it's not just the domestic brands that are having chip problems. Yes, they're assembling the Nissan in Tennessee. Is it Smyrna, Tennessee? I think it is. But yet it's a Japanese manufacturer, and you think that they might have some better connections.
Yeah.
Possibly. I know there's a lot of strife, in that whole strain, the whole chain of things. But Volvo had to take a factory down for a while. I've got some old information in front of me just as I was paging through some of the notes that I've kept here. But, in as of May 18th, which is not that long ago, we're well past that. But as of May 18th, Ford had lost 324,000 vehicles of production based on the chip shortage.
Wow.
And it has not gotten better since then.
Right.
As of that same date, General Motors had lost 277,000 vehicles of production. This is going from some statistics, which Automotive News always has a bunch of these industry statistics in it. Stellantis, which most still look to as Chrysler, 250,000, 252,000. And then it gets down into Subaru, 45,000, Volkswagen, 45,000. It's almost like they had to have a few of the others lose some too, so it didn't seem so bad. But you do wonder what is behind it. And it's not just in automobiles. I know that there's people waiting for, Russ waited for some kitchen appliances.
I'm still waiting for the washer and dryer that I ordered
and
7 months ago.
Some of these electronics use a similar chipset in them that is used in the automobiles.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and these are coming from major manufacturers. And so we're not going to see a let up in vehicle prices or demand until the new can get straightened out. And I have a few conspiracy theories on the whole thing, and I'm sure other people do too, but it is interesting, use that word again, that certain vehicles can get done.
Yeah.
That are made out of a lot more electronics than other vehicles. It's almost like there's a transition being made for us.
Like it's a planned outage?
I don't know.
Or a planned
Somebody's
slowdown?
got control, and it's not the people losing 324,000 vehicles.
It's not cool. And cool too. One of our friends down in Houston, Texas, they've been without air conditioning for their second week now. That's
not cool.
No. And they said, well, your unit you have needs this controller and we can't get it. And the only other option is a complete rebuild in this business. To fix the controller, they said it's going to be about $8,000. To replace the air conditioning system, everything's got to be changed. And that's like $100,000 in this building. So they're waiting, but they said, well, how long? They said, well, it could be another 2 or 3 weeks. They're like, are you crazy?
So just to transition the thought, not that it's became acceptable, but, oh my gosh, it's almost became acceptable for things not to be done.
Yeah,
it's people aren't surprised anymore.
No, they're used to hearing you'll have to wait and it'll be more expensive. It shouldn't be either one. It should be, a wait, but not like could be 6 months, could be a year. We have no idea.
We did some adding on to our facility out here, and we've been, and the guys they're doing good about it, but commercial garage door operators through this brand that we work with, they're on back order, and they've got hundreds of them on back order. So they're putting in a lot of doors without the commercial operators on them. And so it's just interesting. Whatever your place in life is, I guarantee you can probably tell a story where you've been affected by supply chain issues. But it's very, very public when it comes to the auto manufacturers, and it's really shaking up the auto market.
866-594-4150. Let's go to Oregon and talk to Keith. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Keith, what can we do for you?
Well, I have a Geo Tracker. It's Chevy built. It's a 5-speed 4-wheel drive, and I wanted to use it for towing behind a motorhome. Besides, it's my mountain rig for going hunting and stuff. Anyway, I've talked with several professional folks in the industry of automotive, and I read through the manual, and it says for towing that you put the 4-wheel drive into neutral and you put the standard into second gear, which kind of, I don't know, why. And then everybody else is, well, the transmission person said, yeah, that's kind of common, and mechanics say I'd put it in neutral, and so I'm sitting here figuring out which way I should go with this without wrecking my transmission.
I've got to ask a few questions that just puzzle me.
Okay.
The Geo Tracker, they haven't made them for a long time.
Right.
How long have you had this Geo Tracker?
Oh, I've only had it for about a month. I bought it to tow and then go out in the woods for my.
Where did you find a nice condition Geo Tracker that you felt worthy of towing where you're going?
Well, it's actually, the mileage it's 176,000 miles on it, and I've been fixing it up. It's in really good shape, according to my main mechanic. He says, yeah, it's in good shape. So, and I found it in Idaho.
Do you mind telling me what you paid for it?
I paid $2,000 for it.
I'm interested in when I hear stuff like this.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because these vehicles you said it was a 97, and they haven't been sold for a long time. They have a cult following that people just, when they've got ones that work yet, they hang on to them. They get recirculated around. There is a bunch of people that use them in our part of the world, if they can find nice one, they do use them for hunting. They use them for ice fishing, not to bobber themselves,
right,
but they drive out on the ice.
Are there any neon accents on the Geo Tracker?
Neon accents?
Like paint or striping or logos?
No, there's none of that yet. I haven't blended it in to match the motorhome or anything. No, I haven't done the paint, the paint stuff.
Okay,
yet.
So before we answer your question, we're avoiding. Russ, what color is this Geo Tracker, do you think?
It's blue.
You think it's blue?
No.
Oh, Chris, what do you think?
I think it's white.
And I think that it's red.
Well, it's maroon, actually.
Okay.
Well, we're very patriotic.
What color is the motorhome?
I know you're hit.
What color is the motorhome? You got to just tell us. We're not guessing. It's maroon.
Yeah, it's maroon.
Okay.
Oh wow! So you not only found a Geo Tracker that's worth using, you found one to match your motorhome.
Yeah.
Well,
and I found one for a decent price, because usually they were running $4,000 to $6,000. So.
Yeah. Well, back in the day, you saw a number of Geo Trackers in tow. They were a popular vehicle for that. The transfer case in neutral, in theory, is going to disengage all of the drive.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, you're going to be freewheeling. Your front wheels are going to be spinning. Your back wheels are going to be spinning, and you'll be freewheeling your drive shafts in the transfer case. Now, apparently, that system is set up with enough of a mechanical fluid pump or just splash system that it works just fine. There's some vehicles nowadays that they just don't work for towing, and you got to watch out for that so you don't instantly damage things once you start towing.
Yeah, a lot of the transfer cases have a pump built into them.
And so now the recommendation of what gear to put the manual transmission in, when somebody recommended second gear, I'm just I am curious about that. What Russ's opinion is on that.
Well, you got to look and see what the manufacturer says, because a lot of them will say just leave it neutral. But if they're telling you to put it in second, that's because there's still a little bit of drag through a transfer case. It's in neutral and vibration, and it will turn the transmission. So they put it in gear, and it just holds the transmission solid, even though it's in neutral. Otherwise, it'll still carry through a slight bit.
Right, and that's what it said to do. As far as the manual, I still have a manual for the vehicle, and it said to put it in second gear.
So it even came with an owner's manual.
And every couple hours, you're supposed to stop and start the vehicle up and let it run for like 10 minutes, and then go again.
Huh.
So I'm assuming that's for circulation of the.
And so that is right in the manual. It says that, huh?
Right.
Impressive.
Wow.
They do make, for those kind of vehicles, get on the forums of people that are towing on the motorhome forums, and they make some external pumps you can buy. So if you don't want to stop every couple hours, or if you do stop and you just don't want to walk back there and start the vehicle up for whatever reason, they make a little pump that you can put on transmissions and things to keep fluids circulating, to keep them lubricated so they don't burn up. And then that ties in with you can tie them in with trailer lights or brake lights and all sorts of different things people have done to give a little extra lubrication back there to run it. The best way is a power outlet that's set up for that with a fuse and the whole thing.
It's not a very big vehicle. It could be a pretty small trailer if you just want to go 4 up.
There you go. Keith, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. 866-594-4150. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show.
Make a radio appointment each week to hear the Nordstrom's Under the Hood Show.
866-594-4150. From the Autotempest.com studios, all the cars, one search. This is the Under the Hood Show. Let's go to Ron now and talk to Ron in Oregon again. Ron, you're on the Under the Hood Show. What can we do for you?
Howdy. I've got just a couple of questions about 2 more classic cars, just to get your opinion. And third is the one that I'm really worried about, which is I'm looking at a 2001 Chevrolet 3/4-ton Duramax, and the price is really low, and I'm really not a diesel guy. But the main problem seems to be that it's weeping from the water pump. And I was concerned because after looking it up and seeing how to replace that, that's the hokiest water pump I have ever seen. And I was wondering if it's weeping out the weep hole, the likelihood of it leaking into the oil, and should I be really concerned, or just the fact that looks like a real nasty job?
It should be replaced no matter what. If it's leaking, replace it. There's no other way around it. And it is a horrible job. Some people say, "Oh, I do those all the time. They're fine." It's like, well, good for you. They're horrible. Well, we get them in our shop. We've done plenty of them, and we don't like them, but they have to be done if they're leaking. You don't want to run the risk of any kind of damage on one of those engines. But if you find one of those at a good price, at the very least, buy it, fix it, and sell it for a huge price. I regularly. I'm regularly perusing Autotempest.com looking for vehicles like that, and they've got all the cars on there for one search, so it's showing you all the websites available. And I don't find even though they're looking everywhere, I wish there were a lot more cars for sale right now, because that would mean more choices and lower prices. But right now there's not a lot. So if you found one that you think is a good deal, it's probably a great deal, because they're crazy. I just had one of our good customers.
It's such a great deal. I'm concerned. It's got 169 thou and it's only $7,000.
That something is very wrong there. I would test it, because you could buy at that price. You could buy that truck and spend $14,000 to put a remanufactured engine in it and make money. But again, it could be
kind of the way I felt.
Yeah, it could be somebody that doesn't know what they're doing either, because we just had a very good customer of ours with a 50,000-mile 2004 Chevy Duramax, which isn't too far off. I said, you going to sell that thing on the auction coming up? He goes, nah, I think we're going to keep it. It's probably not worth much, so we don't want to, we'll just drive it as the farm truck. I said, whoa, do you know how much it's worth? He's like, well, we were thinking maybe 14,000, 15 at the very most, because it's still pretty clean. And I said, you want to try about 40? He's like, no way. So I pulled up autotempest.com and turned the screen around, and I said, Jim, oh my gosh, I had no idea. I said, yeah, that's what you should be getting for the 2 old trucks with 200,000 miles on them, that are fair shape, but they got a lot of miles. So, yeah, they're worth a lot. So even if you could pick the truck up, just look and see what they're selling for.
In your market, in your area. Now, the question he asked, I want to make sure.
In my market, in my area, is about $25,000. And so that's what what it is where the second question comes in. Because my wife wants to pull a travel trailer, and right now she has a 02 Highlander, and it just won't tow the weight she wants to tow. She goes, oh, it'll tow this. I go, no, it won't. You don't tow to the maximum. And so I was looking at getting this for her, but then I thought, we've got the vehicle that I've got the second question about, which is a 69 Ford 4-wheel drive, and for when she wanted to tow, we could use that. But the question on that one is, and as soon as I say the engine, you'll wonder how weird I am, but a month or two ago I called you, and I was the guy with the mid-engine V8 Corvair pickup. So expect the weirdness. The 69 Ford 3/4-ton F-250 with a 69 Oldsmobile 455 and a turbo 400.
Did not expect that.
But yeah, my dad, we were a shop here in our little town that we closed down in 89, but he bought the truck brand new with a 360 in it, and it just didn't have enough go behind it. So our next door neighbor owned a junkyard, and he said, hey, Lefty, you're going to the auction today. Bring us back something with this kind of horsepower and this kind of torque and this kind of money. And Lefty come dragging in a Oldsmobile 98 police cruiser.
It's interesting
And
that
so
that 455 would have had that much more power than the 360 that was in there.
That was a good, strong engine. If it still runs well, that should be a pretty good truck for that.
The
Turbo
thing
400.
I'd be more worried about towing if you're going to tow too much with that. Just the condition of the braking system and the steering on that solid front axle. If it's a 4-wheel drive, just to make sure it's not too much chase on the steering wheel to be chasing that thing around the road when you're trying to tow. That'd be my bigger concern. For sure.
I've pulled total weight with that one before, and the statute of limitations are now passed. I came down 6% grades in the Cascades with the truck, Ferguson TO20, and a load of wood. When I went across the weigh scales on the way home at like 2 a.m, it was 38,000 pounds total vehicle weight.
Oh boy!
So
you
it has been modified slightly.
Ron, you sound like an interesting character. It's got a lot of cool stuff, and we appreciate you being a hoodie and listening to the show. We got to roll to some other calls, but that 3/4 ton you're looking at sounds like it could be a pretty good deal for sure. Like Russ is saying, especially if it's not rusted out and corroded and beat up, that could be a very good value, even if it is a worst case scenario. Typically, when the water pumps go out, it does not affect the inside of the engine. That was a question we didn't answer. I want to make sure we got it. Typically, so you might have you have to let you run an exhaust gas check on it just to make sure there's no other problems with like head gaskets or something like that. But even if there is, you might be able to afford to fix it for the current state of the car market. Thanks for calling.
Ron, thanks very much for the call. 866-594-4150. Let's take a break here in a second. We'll talk to Chuck and Butch in just a minute. But let me ask you, Shannon, at this point in the market, what is our responsibility as a consumer to tell someone who maybe has a price in mind that they put on the truck a year ago or 2 years ago?
That it's worth more?
Yeah.
I would have felt, like I could have told Jim, I would have said, you know what? I said, that's a beautiful truck. I know the history on it. I'd like to buy it. And he says, well, yeah, let me see what they think. I said, I might go a couple thousand more, if your family's thinking that it should go worth. If he sold it to me for that, I would feel like a crook.
Right.
I mean, I'd feel like I I absolutely stole it. If you're buying something for 14 when you know it's worth 40, people are going to do it, and there's no law against it. But what's your moral compass?
Check
say?
Autotempest.com, one of our sponsors, one of our partners, and just see what the values are of vehicles. Understand that. I'm a little nervous about people that are buying this stuff on long-term financing when the market comes back the other way. That makes me nervous.
If it does.
We're going to take a break.
Attention.
When we come back, we want to hear from you. 866-594-4150. You're listening to the Under the Hood Show. 866-594-4150. From the Autotempest.com studios, all the cars, one search. This is the Under the Hood Show. And if you subscribe to our YouTube channel and join the Hoodie Fan Club at underthehoodshow.com, you could win a hoodie.
Like David Wright, who listens to us in Sweetwater, Texas. What a place. I like it.
Sounds great.
It is. Congratulations from our friends over at Universal Technical Institute, training you for a career in automotive technology. Welding, marine mechanics, motorcycle repair, collision repair, and more. Check them out at uti.edu. They've got campuses all over the country, and they are getting people prepared for careers, getting them ready to go to work. And you're going to need it. Mark my words. We're going to look back in the show and go, you remember when we said that you should be getting trained when you thought, oh, I can get by without it because there's so many jobs? Yeah, we're going to go back. So we'll keep this one in mind, Chris. And right now, CarMax is hiring experienced technicians for many of its 200-plus stores nationwide. If you're looking for a job where you can make a great living while working on the cars you love, CarMax is the place for you. Join CarMax and grow your technical expertise and work with state-of-the-art tools and technology. Work on the cars you love. Join CarMax. Apply today at CarMaxAutotech.com.
866-594-4150. Let's talk to Chuck. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Chuck, what can we do for you?
Hi, guys. Hey, I have a 2011 Buick Regal, the 2.4 liter in it, and got about 165,000 miles on it. They had two little leaks on the side of it, so they took it apart and fixed the leak and put a new water pump in it and driving it, and it still uses, probably my daughter drives it to college, so from Brookings to back, it probably uses a half quart of oil, but it doesn't leak on the floor anywhere. There's no leaks anywhere. What would be a spot to look for that?
Well, if you're not seeing it physically on the ground or wetness somewhere on the car, under the car, it's not what you want to hear, but it's burning it out the exhaust, and the catalytic converter system is there's enough heat there you'll never notice it. It just it vaporizes that oil mist that's coming out that is not being sealed by the engine, by the either the piston rings or the valves or wherever it's leaking by. The 2.4 liter engines, it would not be unusual for one to have this problem. We see a bigger problem with that motor having problems in the Equinoxes and the Terrains and that package for some reason than we do in the Regals. There is some demand. Is this a supercharged model or on that one?
Nope. Just a straight 2.4. Yep.
Straight 2.4. Because I did some research on a friend of mine was buying one with the supercharger on, or the supercharger or turbocharger. What do they do on them? They turbocharge them, or they supercharge them. I don't even remember now, but they charge them with something. But they that motor didn't have as much demand in our part system as the normally aspirated one did. The normally aspirated one had a lot of demand, and oil burning problems were a lot of the issues. We've seen them a lot worse than that. Russ, could he try an oil system cleaner, just to see if maybe he could get fortunate enough to
You could try it, but it's probably
the
not
look
going
on
to
his
do.
face.
I would say 99.5%, zero, nothing, not going to do it any bit of good. Sticky valves, things like that, timing chains that aren't getting lubricated properly. Oil system cleaner is great for that kind of stuff, but freeing up rings that are stuck, no.
You get lucky every once in a while.
Well, they might not just be stuck; they might be worn out.
Yeah, in a certain cylinder or whatever it might happen to be. So I mean that's what you're probably up against. But do check, and we recommend this all the time. There is a positive crankcase vent (PCV) built into the valve cover, and they can be problematic. And a matter of fact, in a lot of those 2.4s, they recommend replacing it as part of a campaign, and that can cause it to, pull out some oil and burn it where it shouldn't be. So check that out if it hasn't been done. It might be something to look at before you realize that maybe the problem's deeper in the engine.
Chuck, thanks very much for the call. 866-594-4150. Let's go to Florida and talk to Butch. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Butch, what can we do for you?
Hey, it's Butch.
Go ahead, Butch.
Hey, guys. How you doing? I love the show so much. I love cars. You guys love cars, yeah?
You bet. I want to hang out. I want to hang out with this guy. He's fun.
Oh man, I ought to hang out if you come to Florida for sure. I got question about my car, and also I wonder if you guys have a car is like a loud car, like any of you guys have one that's one of those really loud ones.
Chris has got one of those loud ones with the big fart can exhaust on it.
No, it doesn't have a fart can. That's not.
Yeah, that's what I like.
Rumbles.
I can't. Yeah. I like a rumble. I can't afford a big one like that. But my favorite comedian is Joe Saba, and he does the sound effects like a car, like brum 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 brum, and made me think of that. But I have a question about my car. It's 2006 Toyota Corolla.
Okay.
Where am I allowed to drive in my car?
On the road?
Like where how far can I drive on in it? Go wherever I want?
In an 06 Corolla?
It should go forever.
No, we got to work this a little bit here just to think about this. The 06 Corolla was designed for the roadways and the beltways and the highways of America, and
not off-road.
It was not designed to be an off-road car. But I do know in this area a couple of guys that had these that used them on their farms and ranches because they didn't break. And they would take those cars and aggressively drive them in some township roads, some back roads of ranches. And they seemed to hold up okay, but all it took is one bad chuck hole and they were done. They broke things. Where do you want to drive this Corolla?
You guys are so cool. I just want to drive to the store mostly and go sometimes visit my friend named Richard, and sometimes we play he play a bass and I play drums. We need a guitar guy. Don't have a guitar guy, but so I drive at his house sometimes. But you guys are so cool. Honestly, you guys are so nice, and I love your show. And this is a really nice interaction for me. Thank you so much for answering my question, and have a great day, please.
Thanks, Butch.
Thank you.
I need bass and guitar. I can handle the drums.
You're on the drums?
Yeah.
I was feeling a little tired today. I'm pepped up now.
866-594-4150. Let's talk to Steve. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Steve, what can we do for you?
Well, I've got a 2008 Dodge Ram. It's just got the CD AM/FM radio in it, and the digital display on a sunny day you can't see it. It's just not bright enough. My shifter display and the instrument cluster, it's fine, and my information center for temp and compass, that's a little dim too. I'm not sure what I should do to fix it.
I'd have to see it to determine if it's dimmer than other models. So I would say look at another one, see how bright that is in comparison. When you tell me if it was just the radio, I think, well, it might have a problem with the radio itself. The display might be wearing out, and then you could change your radio out and fix that screen. But you've got a couple things. You got the compass there too. That's a little dim. So that's two separate things going on there. It's possible that they both have a failure, but it's also possible you've got a problem in your dimmer switch on your dash, causing it to be dimmer than it should be. It could just be old, but it's also they're not very bright.
I do roll my dimmer down, and my shifter display does go down.
Okay,
and the other two go down, and it's I don't know. I remember the old Ford pickups and cars. I used to take them apart and replace the bulb,
Yep.
But I don't think there's any bolts
No,
in these.
nothing in there. And some of those I've seen when I go to get mileage and stuff on them when I'm checking them in our parking lot. They're not super bright. If the sun's shining through the window right on the radio, it's a little hard to see. So it may be that's the way that one is. If it's
Well, I just want to ask.
no different than
I
others.
want to ask Steve this. Steve, have you owned it
Yes, sir.
long enough to know that it was brighter at one time and now it's much different?
I think it was brighter when I bought it new, and I don't know. I've driven it 344,000
Yeah,
miles.
so you
so
kind of
far.
know. So have you had an eye test lately?
Yeah, is it you? You're
Yeah, I have
13
that.
years older.
I have that going on. It's like
Because
hey,
the
this
truck's
used to be
got
so
the
bright.
truck's not the only thing that's gotten older,
Right.
So there's things to look at there too. But
Well, maybe I should. Wearing sunglasses doesn't help. I
no,
suppose.
hey, now something here just completely. When you say that, I have certain polarized sunglasses that I thought the heads-up display was broken on two different vehicles.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, when one day I got in there with different sunglasses, I'm like, oh, it's fixed. And I'm like, oh, you dummy, it's the sunglasses. Gas pumps, certain gas pumps you can't read with certain sunglasses on. So
Really?
in all
Well-
seriousness, try without the sunglasses.
Yeah, one of the kinds I have in the Camaro, I cannot see the heads-up display almost at all. It's just barely a shadow. But if I wear my other glasses, I noticed because I wore my other ones home the other day, so I didn't need to grab mine out of the console. And I was like, hey,
We may have just solved a whole bunch of people's display problems
We
because
might have.
this is a real issue for our family.
Absolutely.
And I take off the sunglasses of like, that is the brightest heads-up display I've ever seen in my life. And then I put them on, it's gone.
Or the glass that you can't see, it looks dirty, so you start to clean it and you realize it's the sunglasses are clouding the UV protection. Steve, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. 866-594-4150. Let's go to California and talk to Russ. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Russ, what can we do for you?
Hi, thank you for taking my call. I'm working on a 2007 Honda CR-V. I have an air conditioning problem. Some time ago it quit, and I replaced a relay in the box under the hood, and it fixed it. I was really excited. Cost me $8, and lasted about a month, and it quit again. So I thought, okay, swung into the parts store, got another one, put it in. Didn't fix it this time. So I've been troubleshooting and trying to figure out what's going on, and I just I need help, I guess.
I'm wondering if that relay you replaced was the compressor relay. Do you know? Compressor clutch relay?
Yeah, I would say yes. And I tried to jumper it to get the clutch just to see if it would go, click.
Right.
And that did not work. I found the power, there's a power, the computer sends a message to it to make the relay work. And so I tried to jumper the two power leads. And I have power to it, and I checked the fuse to it. So it didn't click.
If
It
you
didn't
have
work down below, there's a.
If you
Go
have
ahead.
power going to that clutch, you've jumpered it, you've gone down there, you've measured, you have voltage at the clutch, you've got a clutch failure on the thing. So you've got a compressor that needs the clutch coil assembly replaced or a replacement compressor. If you've got power down there, you've got good power and you've got good ground. Because if you lose your ground, it's not going to work either. But my thoughts are it's possible that there was high resistance in that clutch coil on the AC compressor. You put a relay in because the resistance burnt up the relay. And then when you put the new relay in, the coil just continued to fail and finally went completely out. We've put a number of those on, so it's very plausible that is out. That would require fixing that. But I get real nervous when you say you've worked with the relay with the computer side, even testing it. The computers don't like that much. And I've seen a lot of computers fail. The driver and the computer fail. So once you get this fixed and you find that you can jump power and get the compressor now to operate from the relay, if the relay doesn't come on, you may need a computer because even just testing there, if you jump the wrong 2 pins or if you test it too aggressively in the wrong spot, it can cause the computer to die. they're real sensitive. They don't like the voltage spikes and things. But I would start with, if you've got power going down there and the compressor is not engaging, you've got to find out why. I mean, if it's right at the compressor clutch, it sounds like the compressor clutch has failed.
Russ, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show. 866-594-4150.
Find out how you can participate in the show by visiting underthehoodshow.com.
866-594-4150 from the Autotempest.com studios. All the cars, one search. This is the Under the Hood Show. What's caught your attention in the automotive world?
Anybody thinking about buying a Ferrari anytime soon?
I was going to wait till the market changes a little bit.
Were
I
ya?
was going to, and then I thought
I'm
I should
not
wait.
thinking about soon or later or anything like that. It's just too much.
When you're ready, Chris,
Mm-hmm.
would it make you do it any sooner if you got two for the price of one?
Yes, I think so.
What would you do with the second Ferrari?
That's a good question. I'd probably just keep it and not say much about it and just...
What would Oscar think about you having a second
Yeah,
Ferrari
I
that
would-
you didn't tell anybody about?
I wouldn't have told him. That's the point. Yeah.
A second? Not just one, but a second Ferrari?
Well, by this story I'm reading here from Final Assembly and Automotive News, in case one Ferrari is not enough, the Italian automaker has a new program that lets buyers get two identically configured cars, with one being a scale model.
Okay.
There's the hook.
Yeah.
What's the scale?
Well,
Is
you
it
can,
one
you,
to
you
one?
can either get 1/8 or 1/12
Oh, that's
Okay.
way too small.
scale. And they don't have pricing listed yet, and I'm not going to try to say the name of the designer that makes the models because I commonly butcher
Right.
names, so I'm not even going to try. So you can go find the story on your own. But they have on their website, they have other models in that scale range in their collection that are priced from $10,000 to $15,000.
See, now that seems much. I went to, I used to build models, and I went to a hobby shop recently and was looking at models, and they're expensive now. When I was a kid, a $5 bill could buy you a model.
Oh,
now, nowhere near that. Now, this
So
wasn't 10,000.
I do have questions. You know, is this a die-cast model? Is this a plastic model? I have these questions, which I haven't looked up at all because I'm just total story that I just grabbed because it was interesting. They always do a good job of grabbing my attention with these headlines.
Fully functional 1/8 scale model.
That would be neat.
Yeah, it doesn't say that it's fully functional. even.
Go-kart.
It doesn't say that at all. So it's made by I'm going to try it.
Uh-oh.
You guys, I'm going to try it.
I wouldn't.
Don't.
Spell it out. No,
Can
I'm
I spell
kidding. Go ahead.
AMALGAM. Amalgam. Amalgam collection.
That's
Sure.
something
How'd
they
I
use in
do?
a dentist office.
It doesn't matter how you did now. You've questioned it so much. You got to just say it.
Well, I typically will in
Yeah.
life. I'll just own it. But when it comes to things that I just know I'm going to be wrong on, I'll get ahead of it and say I'm going to be wrong here because there's a really good odds on that one. So, yeah. So get two for the price of one, except for the second one is still expensive and it's not the same.
866-594-4150. I had a situation the other day in the car that made me take notice. I was driving down in the city, going stoplight to stoplight, and there was a vehicle ahead that was causing issues. I'll just say that. I thought maybe it was somebody on their phone.
You know who you are.
Yeah, some
It was you.
teenager not paying attention. They were it was a 2-lane. We had 2 lanes and we were stopping at stop sign or stoplights and it was kind of not staying in the lane and it wasn't taking off from green lights. And I thought, some kid is up on his phone and he was a few cars ahead of me. Then I got behind him and it was a brand new Buick Enclave. And I thought, well, that's no kid on his phone. That's gotta be. I mean, I don't want to.
So is there more to this story?
Yeah, I don't want to cast assumptions.
Okay.
But Buick Enclave, you wouldn't think that it's a teenager on his phone.
I'll agree with you.
And so I finally got the chance to go around him, and it was about an 80-year-old guy on his phone.
Oh, my. So you got part of it,
I
right?
got both. Yeah, he was, and it wasn't like, it looked like, maybe I'm projecting. It looked like he was doing Snapchat or Instagram or something. He was taking pictures of himself in his new Buick Enclave. I'm positive.
You were as distracted as he was, the level of detail that you have.
Then it was both validating and surprising at the exact same time. It was both of the things that I thought it could be.
I have a relative in their 80s and who has stopped driving within the last 2 years, and I had received pictures from her taken while driving in the car by herself, of outside. It's like, oh, look at this. And I'm like, so it doesn't matter. They do it. I don't even know I should tell the story on the air or not, but the other day I was turning.
He's going to.
I was turning onto for fear that this young driver probably, listens to the show, of course, because, these teenagers in there probably it might be 21, 22. They all listen to the End of the Hood show.
It's our demo.
But I was turning off to get onto the interstate, close to where I live. You kind of know where that. And as I turn, I am watching and I see a girl pulling up, and she had to be, no older than 24, 25, and she's got a coffee cup with something in it in her right hand, with the back of her fingers holding the steering wheel, and a phone in the other hand, staring at it, and then shaking her head and shaking her head, and she's like creeping forward, just a few inches at a time, not looking at anything. And as I'm going, of course, I have to turn right to get onto the interstate. She's directly in front of me, so if I didn't make the turn right, I would plow right into her door. So as I made the turn, I laid down on the old bighorns right as I turned, and she threw her phone up and threw her coffee up and then started screaming at me. And I said,
"Oh, it was your fault."
Oops. Well, I just kept going.
Yeah.
But I thought it was hilarious. You get what's coming to you, but I don't know. But
had she creeped out into the intersection?
No, she wasn't up there, and it was early on a Sunday morning, so there were no other cars there. No, if she would have let off the brake and gone forward way out in the intersection, nobody was around to hit her. But it was.
You know what stinks?
Great.
I hit a skunk.
Oh, really?
It wasn't the one that was right. There was one. Yeah.
But the worst part was, it was already dead when I hit it.
Yeah. There was a dead one right outside of the show here, about a half a mile up the road, and I went, "Is that a skunk or a cat?" Because it just had a little white on the back. I said, "Nah."
I was coming to work the other morning,
down.
and I was looking to see what the neighbor was doing, and I was just kind of looking around.
At least you weren't on your phone.
No, but I will admit that I was eating a banana. Taking a couple vitamins.
The old
banana. Doing a little wool
gathering.
gathering, maybe.
Yeah, and all of a sudden I hear thump. Like, geez, what was that? And then I look back in my mirror and I saw there was a animal. We have animals in the road here,
For
and
sure.
So didn't think much of it. Started pulling into work. I'm like, must be a skunk around here somewhere. Went around the back of the building because I always make a drive around the property. I'm like, boy, it's pretty strong. Must be back here. And I parked in the parking lot, and I'm like, where is that at? And then all of a sudden it clicked, like, oh, when you don't know, it's you?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's me.
Isn't it?
So when I went to lunch to go take one of our team members for their annual review, I drove that way. I'm like, oh, yeah, there's what it was. So, my vehicle's been banished to even after a couple of car wash trips, it's been banished to outside parking.
Have you ever seen somebody hit one of those as you're going down the road and it starts rolling and it's like sprays like a fountain?
It's not good.
That'll do it for another hour of the Under the Hood Show. The Under the Hood Show is brought to you by Sturdivants.